Update 24.6 is live on PC, and any player can now experience the new visual overhaul on the plains of Eidolon. They've also made all the extra cave doors available from the get-go, and you can just go into any of those caves from loading into a session. The conservation system is also now on the plains of Eidolon, and the conservation vendor for Cetus is Master Tiasani, who is located in front of Hock's Anvil. The player can also purchase echo lures and pheromones for the Kondroks, Kawakas, and the new species Thermia. Tiasani also offers floofs for the tags of each of the species, similar to the business, and you can also acquire the Plains of Eidolon Conservation Emblem. Also, in relation to the Kondroks and Kawakas needing to be conserved from now on, they have changed the requirements for the Tower White and Mortis Pink pigments. The Tower White pigment now has a 100% drop chance of 1 pigment per Kuva Jester. They have changed it from Kondroks to the Kuva Jesters, and Mortis Pink now drops from Tusk Flameblades. Grineer Tusk Thumpers are new enemies on the Plains of Eidolon as well, and there are 3 variants. Each variant is tied to a session's enemy level as far as I'm aware, and they can be found on the landscape just roaming around and doing their business. If the Thumpers are not killed fast enough, they will dispatch reinforcement drones, and once killed they will provide the player with Plains of Eidolon resources. Each of the Thumpers also have their own floofs that can be purchased from Nakuk in Cetus for Cetus resources. Now, in relation to the resources, they have done a complete economy update, so they have removed the blueprints for arcanes from the Quills and from Hock. You can now just purchase the arcanes outright, similar to Fortuna. And for those wondering what happens to the blueprints they have in their inventory, they have been changed to straight outright arcanes. They've also added a sell price for the fish meat, which is 100 credits per unit. They have replaced the blueprints for bait can no longer be purchased, and instead you purchase the bait outright, and if players want to sell their bait blueprints that they have in their inventory, they can do so for 100,000 credits. Zor handles now use fish oil instead of fish scales. They have normalized fish part costs across ant part blueprints, with it now being a baseline of 3. They have removed the Cetus Wisp cost from operator armor blueprints and replaced them with Eidolon gems. They removed the Wisp cost from the Amp Prism blueprints and replaced them with fish parts or Eidolon gems. They removed the fish scale cost from operator armor blueprints and replaced them with fish parts. You can now sell your fish oil for 100 credits in your inventory, and once again they have reduced the cost of the Cetus Wisps that you can purchase from Onko to 2,000 standing. A new weapon, the Karudo, can be purchased from the market for 150 platinum, but the blueprint can drop from the new enemy, the Tusk Thumper, Bull, and Doma versions. As for the general additions in this update, they have added Creator Mode, which can be enabled in your settings, which makes it so Fortuna citizens won't reveal their secret. The Lotus will no longer be her purple simulated version. Operator transmissions will be voice only. The email on login screen will be censored, similar to the password, and on-orbiter transmissions and in-mission bumpers for invasions and alerts will not appear. As for the rest of the additions, secondary energy color customization is now available, and the secondary slot will be unlocked once you have applied Forma to your Warframe or weapon. Any non-Forma compatible items, such as Cyandanas and armor sets, will have the secondary energy color slot available by default. Ticker in Fortuna has also added a Venus bounty trap to the secondary wares. They have added ability videos for Harrow, Cora, Octavia, and Gara in the Arsenal abilities screen. They added out-of-bound triggers to some spots in the Grineer Sea Lab where it's possible to get stuck. They have added the damage multiplier stat to Saren's Miasma ability. They added a custom icon for the Nagan Tarka's reload speed buff. They added the Conservation Animals Horsk and Stover to the Codex. The Tusk and Kuva Fortress Shield Lancers have a new look to their shield, and they added a tint to the background of certain UI screens to match the current chosen theme. The Thermia Fractures on the Orb Valis, the reoccurring event, has seen its previously proposed changes, where they allow players to increase the difficulty and lower the overall duration needed to complete 4 fractures. So as the patch notes state, players can now expend additional coolant canisters after a harvest has begun, within the first 30 seconds of starting the harvest. Each additional coolant canister spent will increase the score of the fractures by 1 with a maximum of 4. Each additional coolant canister will increase the frequency of the burps, increase the alert level of the fight, and will add 50 seconds to the fracture, reducing the overall time it takes to find and complete 4 fractures. The fracture burps will also happen on a random timer from 5 to 15 seconds and will randomly select what happens from the following list. The nullifier burp, which will do a burst of energy that creates a nullifier volume around the fracture for a brief moment. A radiation status effect burp, that will be a damage burst with 100% radiation status effect. A rage burp, that increases the damage output of nearby enemies. Thermic rachnoids, which spawns thermic rachnoids, which is a new enemy. The Eximus burp, which spawns Eximus units, and the enemy level burp, that increases the current enemy level. Outside of Thermia Fractures, we have general weapon changes. So the whip and sword slide attacks will now do the same damage with a stance equipped as without. The Tatsu now has its unique effect back, which is that kills with the weapon adds up charges up to a maximum of 5 that can then release seeking projectiles on slide attacks to stun enemies. The Knell is now automatic. The Tysus has had stat changes, so it has changed from 79 corrosive to 9 impact, 23 puncture, 17 slash, and 81 corrosive, delivered in 3 ticks of 27 over 2 seconds. The Ogress has been converted to semi-automatic. Its ammo pool increased to 30, the area of effect is increased to 7 meters, and the area of effect damage has been reduced to 400. The Sonicor's aimed field of view has been reduced, and they adjusted the ragdoll impulse. For the Wolf Sledge, they added a 5 meter 200 explosion damage radial attack on recall. They increased its range to 1.5 meters, increased its melee damage to 130, the throwing projectile damage to 650. They also reduced the collision width of the thrown projectile to 0.2 meters, and they increased the speed of the throwing animations. They have also tied extra effects to when you're using a Warframe with its signature weapon. The Knell will now have a 2-round magazine when wielded by Harrow. Headshot kills with the Tenora's alternate fire will now have a 20% chance to instantly refill the magazine when wielded by Octavia. Headshot kills with the alt fire of the Pandero will increase the reload speed by 20% when wielded by Octavia. The Nagan Tucker will have a 1 meter innate punch through when wielded by Garuda. You will get increased projectile speed when using the Fusilier with Gara, additional slam radial damage when using the Volnus on Gara, and with the Astilla you will get an additional 80 ammo pool when wielded by Gara. The Phantasma will have a magazine size of 15 when wielded by Revenant. The Tech will have an additional 6% status when wielded by Atlas, and the Tatsu will have a charge cap of 9 when wielded by Revenant. As for the changes in this update, you can now cast the following abilities in the air: Trinity's Well of Life, Energy Vampire, and Link, Frost Avalanche, Atlas's Tectonics, Mag Crush, Chroma Effigy, and Loki's Radial Disarm. However, the next set of abilities will have the player redirected and slammed to the ground when casted in the air: Rhino's Stomp, Banshee's Soundquake, Oberon's Hallowed Ground, Korra's Strangledome, Nidus's Virulence, and Harrow's Condemn. As for the other changes, the Stalker, Grustag 3, Zanuka Hunter, and the Wolf of Saturn 6 now have a level cap of 45 when playing solo, but a cap of 60 when in public squads. They also reduce the tankiness of the Wolf of Saturn 6, and all of the Wolf of Saturn 6 Nightwave episodes can now be viewed by selecting Tune In on the Nightwave screen. Typing in items names such as Stradivar Prime, Equinox Prime into the trade screen search bar will now display all relics that contain that item. Limbo's Banish ability timer will now immediately expire if all banished enemies are killed before the timer counts down. Matchmaking for the Exploiter Orb fight can now be done by visiting Utico in Little Duck's room. Hildren is no longer restricted to move at walking speed when charging Balefire. Atlas's passive now prevents him from being affected by abilities and weapons that push or pull him. Killing enemies with operator abilities such as Void Blast and Void Dash will now grant the kill affinity to the equipped amp when possible. Amalgam mods can no longer be equipped on exalted weapons. Nezha's Warding Halo Safeguard augment now takes yourself into priority consideration before others. They changed the high graphics setting to set the anisotropic filtering to 16 instead of 8. The Catch Moon's projectile will now only collide with world geometry when the center of it hits. You can now also name and rename weapons that polarize as opposed to the strict rank 30 requirement. They changed the operator dash to no longer stop dashing when passing through allies and objects that bullets cannot pass through. They increased the speed of Rhino's stomp start animation. They restored the ability to have Baruch's Desert Wind Slam pull enemies instead of pushing them by holding the block and aim key. The Cheza Kubrau's near retrieve functionality can no longer stack with Desecrate and other looting augments. Hydras' water textures have been updated. The Shock camo skins have received a visual PBR update. The same goes for the Phased Vasto, Akvasto, and the Ricti Akulato skins. They made optimizations towards Mirage's Hall of Mirror projectile effect for the Staticore and Ogress that was causing crashes. They made numerous tweaks and ability balance passes towards Junction Spectres. They reduced the frequency of Nora's UI open transmission with a 5-minute cooldown. They made improvements towards fish spawning logic to alleviate cases of fish spawning underground. They updated the enable hint transmissions in the audio options menu with more common transmissions. They enlarged the voice over IP HUD indicator to increase visibility. They improved some cases of visual clipping between the Mesa coup de grace skin and other accessories. They tweaked the Odinata Prime's metallic materials to appear more shiny and less dull. They toned down the blue effect in Excalibur's diorama. They toned down the mining laser's radial blur when zooming in. They adjusted the teleporter to prevent players being caught in an endless teleporter loop in the Grenier Settlement tileset. They made improvements to the left-hand position for the Opticore and Archiplasmor. They adjusted the left-hand position when holding the Corinth, and they reduced the visual thickness of the Arctic Eczema Snow Globe's barrier, and also gave it a new look. As for the fixes in Update 24.6, they are up on your screen. You can read them here, or you can check them out on the forum post. We also just had Hotfix 24.6.1 go live, which changed the Ram Prism blueprint to require 3 Saram Beetle shells instead of Glappet bait, and they made 6 fixes. They also notified us of a known issue, which is lock pins skyrocket out of reach, making them inaccessible to remove. And there will be a script run tomorrow to refund the lock pins back to players. That's it for the update and the hotfixes as of recording this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.